Hey everybody, this is Perch. Some Marvel news, comics, and storylines, and kind of maybe some bigger changes for people to pay attention to. So the biggest thing here is that we are getting another Ben Reilly Spider-Man book. Okay, so what does that mean? If you haven't been following up, basically at the conclusion of Nick Spencer's run, the Peter Parker Spider-Man, Peter Parker the character, is going to be sidelined for some reason. Maybe he's off on an extended honeymoon with Mary Jane. Maybe he's in a coma. He appears in solicitation arts to be in severe medical trouble with tubes coming out of him everywhere. We're not sure. But regardless, there has to be a Spider-Man. So who is that Spider-Man? It will be Ben Reilly, who will step into the role of Spider-Man, sponsored by the Beyond Corporation. And he will be basically taking over the title. The title is going to be shipping 3 times a month. So for all intents and purposes, weekly. But you might be saying 3 times a month. Why not 4 times a month? Well, don't you worry. Marvel has got you covered, because that 4th week, although let's be honest here, the odds of them actually, aligning the scheduling so you do have it on the 4th week, pretty low. But regardless, there will be a 4th Spider-Man title dedicated to Ben Reilly, but this one is kind of from the past. So it's flashing back to the Clone Saga time period of Ben Reilly as Spider-Man. And this is going to be written by J.M. DeMatteis with art by David Beldion. And this will basically tell stories spinning out of the Clone Saga of kind of the original adventures of Ben Reilly. Marvel's really going to go all in with this. It's listed as an ongoing series. There's no chance it will be, but it's going to be going for a while at any rate, and it will basically serve that 4th week. So we get a Spider-Man comic every single week, starting in January. So are you excited about that? I love J.M. DeMatteis. We did the retrospective of Kraven's Last Hunt with Larry and Joe, and that was just one of my favorite comics of all time, let alone Spider-Man comics. Very, very solid work there. This doesn't appear to be anywhere close to that kind of dark storytelling, but is more along the lines of classic foes. It is going to involve Ravencroft Asylum. So it's anyway. DeMatteis is excited to return to the Spider-Verse, write more stories for Ben Reilly, and allow him to dig deeper, kind of like in an X-Men classic kind of way. So that's what's happening. It's a brand new title coming out of Marvel for Ben Reilly. The next is a storyline thing. We have 2. This one's not really spoilery. The next one will be. So we're not there yet, though. So in the pages of X-Men, and X-Men in general, we're waiting to see kind of what's going to happen in January, because supposedly a number of titles are going to get canceled or paused. There's going to be relaunches. There's going to be weekly comics. It's going to be a whole, massive thing in January. And they have to get it out in January, because if this goes on for a couple months, it's going to start to run into the 2nd year anniversary of the Hellfire Gala, which will happen again in the summer. So, they got to get this thing out right away. But in X-Men number 6, which will be out in December, this is the book now written by Jerry Duggan, taking over from Jonathan Hickman. They will be introducing Captain Krakoa. And Captain Krakoa is listed as a new mutant superhero with a mystery. He hides his face. Who is Captain Krakoa? He is a character that says he's going to fight for all mutant kind and humankind. He is a selfless hero from the shores of Krakoa who will defend Earth to their last dying breath, is this Captain Krakoa. Cyclops is apparently suspicious of him because, he's a mutant bigot who doesn't like human. No, I'm just kidding. Well, sort of. Anyway, that will be a mystery that will play out in X-Men, is who is the identity of Captain Krakoa. And that is this is kind of the next big storyline that appears to be coming out of Gary Duggan's X-Men series. But again, in January, we're supposed to get some pretty big relaunches and changes for the series overall. So it's hard to say exactly kind of if this is just a springboard to a mystery in the future, regardless. But it gives us an opportunity to have another cover with lots of phones in hands, and everybody loves those, right? It's second only to the selfie cover. Is a cover with lots of people holding up phones and looking at the world through their phones, which we can't get enough of in general. So Also running at this moment, again, this has a little bit more spoilers, but not terrible. The trial of Magneto is going on. This leads into Inferno in 2 weeks from now, roughly. And it's the mystery of, who killed Scarlet Witch. And it seems incredibly clear at this point that Magneto did not kill the Scarlet Witch. That is the bait and switch that is going on here. And clearly that is not the case. But Magneto is angry. There seems to be some manipulation going on here. Anyway, we'll find out who it is. But this is the series that, in theory, is going to ignite Inferno. Although it's going to run in parallel to some of the Inferno issues. So I don't know what's going on here with scheduling. But that is also going on in the X universe. So here's maybe the most spoiler thing that we have to talk about. And we will do a video on this Reckoning War that Dan Slott initially teed up a long time ago. But Fantastic Four number 35, if you haven't read it yet, you can skip away now. We will get into some spoilers of that issue. So this is listed as an anniversary issue. And it's got John Romita Jr., who looks... it's not as great as the old days of John Romita Jr. I mean, if you've been only recently exposed to his work, do yourself a massive favor and go check out his work on Daredevil. Like, he was at the top of his game when he was doing Daredevil. This would be the 80s, right? I think Ann Nocenti was on that book. His X-Men work in that time period was also absolutely brilliant, but his Daredevil work was just incredible. I think he remains one of the top artists. But anyway, he's on this Fantastic Four book, and it's better than what we saw from him out of DC. Still, it's not that same level, but it clearly he seems more inspired in my mind than when he was doing the DC work, or maybe just knew that his art was going to be covered up by Bendis word bubbles. I don't know, but regardless, in this comic, issue 35, I've now delayed enough that you can if you haven't clicked away, you're willing to be spoiled. So in this comic, we're tying into some of the things that recently came out in the Loki series. Primarily around Kang and the idea of the sacred timeline and variants. And not a big surprise, of course, that we want to tie into some of that stuff. But we find some manipulation basically going on here. And this comic ultimately leads to this larger revelation that Nathaniel Richards had a secret second family. And with this second family, he had a daughter, Reed Richards' long-lost sister, who Nathaniel then tasked the Fantastic Four Reed with protecting. So they give you a brief, kind of glowy version of the sister, who appears to be dressed in the same kind of armor that Nathaniel Richards is often run around with. But it's basically a sister we didn't know we had. When you need a good idea for a comic, Secret Sisters. It worked for Nightwing. It works for the Fantastic Four here too. But from the silhouette, and of course we can't see the image, it appears, based on how John Romita Jr. draws hair, and granted this is the thinnest of threads, that his sister will be portrayed as black, which here's where maybe it gets interesting. In the Loki series and in the MCU, they of course have cast Kang, and the casting of Kang is with a very solid actor. I think I liked Jonathan Majors and what he's done, but basically Jonathan Majors is black. He portrays Kang. Kang is a descendant of Reed Richards. This caused a lot of speculation that when Reed Richards is brought in to the MCU and on the big screen, that Reed will be also cast as a black character. We don't know that, of course. There's been no confirmation of who Reed Richards will be. It seems almost certain that character has been cast. I think that they've picked somebody, but we don't know who. And I also think the odds are still maybe against this. However, and I say that mainly because nobody who's watching the MCU movies knows or cares that Kang is a descendant of Reed Richards. And if they do decide to tie in the Fantastic Four that way, it's an easy opportunity, but it also maybe unnecessarily convolutes the MCU, which has typically tried to steer away from that stuff. The origin stories are a little bit lighter and fluffier than something that's going to tie into a Disney Plus series. That's a lot of connections. Again, could happen. But the fact that in the comic book, Dan Slott is introducing this sister who, at least from, again, all we have is a glowy silhouette. We haven't even seen the face of this sister. But again, the way John Romita Jr. draws kind of hair and the style seems like this could be it seems like it's a black woman who will be his sister. Fine. But that's, so there you go. Is this an attempt to kind of tie in a loose way to the MCU? If so, it would still be weird because Reed is obviously still white and heavily bearded in the comic, and you'd have to find ways to work around that. So there's just a lot of aspects here. But I look at this and I think it does feel like a bit of a nod to at least maybe this controversy. Well, not controversy, but this fan casting guess that this may be what's going on. So there you have it. Speculate below. Are we getting a half sister to Reed who's black? Is this going to be a major new character to the family? Maybe a villain character? Fantastic Four can always use more villains. Why not? What all do we have here? Johnny Storm is still floating around in a bubble because his firepower is out of control. So there you go. All things Marvel. What do you like? What do you don't like? Let me know in the comments below. And thanks for listening.